Sup nerds, I'm Aaron.
I'm Tom.
We're Never Board Gaming, and we're taking a look at Super Motherload by Roxley Games.
Super Motherload is a deck building game, but it's a little bit different than other deck building games I've ever seen because it kind of mixes in the deck building with like a another aspect which I would kind of call like reverse tile placement.
Yeah, I can see that because you're taking these tiles and covering up the board as you play cards from your deck that you've built, and you gather resources from those.
So instead of placing these tiles out to make to kind of make a board and make something bigger, you're making everything less. You're getting rid of stuff that's already there.
And those materials that you're gathering, you're using those to build, to buy more cards to build your deck.
And I do feel this deck builder to be a lot different because, we're not all buying from the same pool of cards. We all have our individual, decks. And they're not identical. Like, a lot of the symbols on them and stuff are kind of shuffled around a little bit. So each deck is slightly different, but it's not like, we're all buying from this one pool that's in the middle and this card flopped out on your turn. Oh, you get to get that really good card that I've been waiting for.
Yeah, we have very similar decks. They just synergize slightly differently.
Correct.
So the main difference is if you're trying to go for one of the goals and it's saying, hey, buy all the blue cards, you're like, oh, actually, I don't like my blue abilities. I'd rather buy my yellow cards, so I'm actually not going to get that achievement.
You are incentivized by the goals that are randomly thrown out there for you to try to achieve, but also you might be disincentivized because you might go, I don't want that. I don't need that.
Yeah, I'd rather use the bomber. Like I like collecting the bombs and throwing down more bombs and blowing stuff up. And it is kind of dependent on the way the map gets set up because as you dig deeper, there's two sides to the board, and
right.
One side, depending on how it comes up.
Yeah, so you could see a lot of one color. Like I could see a lot of this yellow right here and just kind of look and think, just kind of go, you know what? I'm going to try and bust up all those yellows right there, and I'm going to try and, so I'm going to buy all my yellow cards. Or you could say, ooh, look, there's a diamond right here in the red. I'm going to buy the red for that.
This game is basically a race to the bottom. Like you're collecting these artifacts as you go down. They're scattered among every board, and as you get them, they're kind of like a little boon. Like they take another action, or they give you more victory points and stuff. And once they've all been uncovered, they've all been taken, the game ends. So you're trying to weigh, do I want to go fast to the bottom, or do I want to take my time and get as many materials as I can and dig all over the place and just buy up all my cards? Because your cards are what's worth the victory points.
It is really interesting that this is one of those games where you can kind of choose when you're going to trigger endgame. You can be like, ooh, well, I could come right here and get this last artifact and trigger endgame now. Or do I need more turns? But I guess if I don't trigger it now, then I'm giving him another turn. And what if he triggers it and he gets one more turn than I do? It's definitely not one where you're just like, oh, well, once this deck runs out, the game's over. You actually really watch and you go, you know what? I don't think he's going to be able to get that this turn, so maybe I'll have another turn come around to me.
So when you first look at this box, or at least when I did not think it was what it is. Like, the artwork on the outside of the box is very different from what's on the inside. Like, it's the same color scheme and everything, but the inside is a lot more cartoony and very harshly drawn, while this is very like an art piece.
Yeah, this is like a painting of the stuff that you see on the inside. But yeah, you don't see any art like that when you open the box. And the component quality is really good too. The tokens are pretty thick. Even though we're talking about the disjointedness of the art from there to here, it still looks good when it's on here. The cards are of a good quality, you don't feel gypped when you open up the box at all.
And these colors, they kind of give you that 80s feel. I actually felt like it was Dig Dug. Like you're because you're digging around and,
and after you dig, you've already dug.
What?
So it's like...
It gives that feel, and it's very, bright and colorful and well put together.
Overall, I did thoroughly enjoy Super Motherload. I'm not going to say it's the best deck builder I've ever played, but it is always a breath of fresh air whenever I sit down to a game that is, a category that I'm familiar with, that is deck building or area control or tire placement or whatever, and it does it a little bit differently. And I really think this game does. I've never seen another deck builder that does things in this fashion. And even little rules, normally in all deck builders you always draw your hand up at the end of your turn, the start of your turn or whatever. This, it makes it an action to draw cards. So you can look at your hand and say, do I want to use what I have, or do I want to spend one of my two precious actions to draw more cards? So I think on a lot of different levels, this game took things that we're familiar with and, turned them on their head.
I definitely agree with that. coming into a game that you're familiar with the mechanics, but they change it in a way that you have to completely re-strategize the way you play is a lot of fun. You see these, these goals, you have the minors and the major goals, and you're like, let me see if I can make my deck work to, try and get those. Even though you could just buy up one entire, color scheme and get a whole bunch of victory points that way. And I like having those options where you can go for the goals to give you extra victory points, or you could just stick to one type of card and just go through that entire deck and maximize the victory points from that.
And you maximize the way that the deck works too.
Exactly.
Scoot.
I thought the game was fantastic. It does something unique with deck builders. It's fun. It's pretty. The components are all solid. Great job, Roxley.
Who the was that? Overall, we really enjoyed Super Motherload. All three of us, we thought it was really fun, and if any of what we were talking about today sounds interesting to you, you can go ahead and click the purchase link down below and get yourself a copy.
Hey, and while you're here, don't forget to subscribe to our channel so you'll never be bored. And I like having those options where you can either, for those minor and major, you don't have to drill all the way to the bottom and get the last, okay. Try and gather your victory points like you should.
Nice and terrible.